morning, everyone. Welcome to the pre-conference for requests for application for our homeowner support services. It's really nice to see all of you this morning. And for those of you that I have not met yet, my name is Kim Freeman. I'm the Assistant Director to Homeownership Programs. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm going to be one of your hosts today for this session. I will just let everyone know that Director Emma Shea Perfecto would have been here this morning, but unfortunately she has been out ill all week and will not be here with us this morning. We have several OHCS staff here today, and I just want to give them a shout out for their assistance. We have a lot of our homeownership program team. I'm not introducing everyone, but I just want to acknowledge that they're here. We have our public affairs team here. We have representatives from our fiscal team and our procurement. So I just want to thank the OHCS staff that are here today. Our purpose today is to, again, walk through the request for application. I also do want to have a call out that we understand, especially from the homeownership program and the homeownership division, we've released 4 requests for applications during the holiday season, and probably wasn't the best timing. And we also want to acknowledge for you, to our partners, that we understand the increased workload, and we also have heard from several partners that there's other funding opportunities from other local jurisdictions that's putting a little capacity crunch on you. And so we have heard that and just want to know that some of our other requests for applications, we have extended those. So please look at our procurement website. If you have not noticed, this meeting is being recorded. It will be posted to our procurement website by the end of the week, and the recording is listed on our procurement website where this RFA is listed. So anything pertaining to this RFA will be listed in one spot on our website, so you don't have to look in multiple places. We ask that you post your questions in the chat so we actually have record of them. There will be an opportunity to ask questions also, but we want to make sure that we are able to document every question that we receive. And after this session, we will be reviewing all the questions, all of the answers, and we will also post them to our procurement website under this solicitation. So if you want to listen to the recording at a later date, you want to make sure you heard the questions, everything will be located in one place for easy access to everyone. We want to share today as we walk through the solicitation, shared program requirements, and these funds are to support eligible organizations that serve low-income homeowners. Again, we're going to do our best to answer all your questions today. If we're not able to answer them, we'll let you know, but we will include your questions in our Q&A that will be posted. I'm going to now turn it over to Alicia Howell, who many of you know, and she's going to walk through some of the programmatic requirements. And then we will turn it over after Alicia is done to Alexis Cackley, who is our procurement specialist on this solicitation, to walk through specifics in the solicitation, along with ensuring that we go over the application as well. This is a simple solicitation for you, but our goal today is to ensure that you have the tools necessary to complete this within the deadline, which is January 30th. And with that, Alicia, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good morning, and thank you everyone for being here. Alexis and I will go through the RFA together. Alexis, do you want to share your screen and we'll start from the top? Perfect.
Okay. Can you see it?
We can. Thank you. We've got the
Okay,
Word
perfect.
document for you. We're looking
Sorry.
at- No problem. Okay. So we'll just, Alexis, do you want to start and highlight the cover page with the dates and things on there and your information?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is for RFA 7365. The date that this was posted was the 28th of December. Our closing time and date, so the day that applications are all due, is going to be January 30th at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then I will be your single point of contact. So all questions, needs for clarification, and your applications will all come to me for the solicitation. And then you can just send those to the contracts inbox, which is down here below.
Okay. So for an introduction, just to share, this money's received during the short session from House Bill 5202. Was funding to distribute to our homeownership centers, nonprofits, and other organizations that are serving low-income homeowners. The amount of our funding is $13.5 million, with an amount of up to $300,000 for each eligible organization to apply for. The funding can be used to either reimburse or future expenses related to technology and software, operational capacity building support, any additional expenses related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and expansion to unserved or underserved populations. Okay, we can scroll down. And of course, from this, we are anticipating multiple awards. Your grant, for all awardees, the grant agreement will be good through, will expire August 15th. Goods and services for this funding and reimbursements are eligible expenses dated March 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. And it must be goods or services received prior on or before June 30th.
Okay, so we are going to go over the schedule. So it was posted, as I said, on the 28th. Today we're doing our pre-application webinar. All of your questions and requests for clarification are due by January 19th by 12 p.m. And then we will get those answers to your questions by the 25th. We're trying to answer them as quick as possible. It's taken us a couple days each question to get those answers back to you. And then we will post all those questions on the opportunities page as well, so everybody can see those. The closing time for the application, as stated on the cover page, is the 30th of January. And then all reservation notices will go out approximately by March 13th. And then again, just kind of want to reiterate the single point of contact is me, to make sure that all those applications are coming to me and not to anybody else. You will just be directed back to me if that is the case, along with your questions. And then for the definition of terms, it's important to kind of review these because they're going to help identify the language throughout the RFA. So just make sure you read those, especially the eligible organization, so you understand what we're meaning throughout. Okay, and then Alicia, you want to cover the grant activities for everyone?
Okay, so just an example of some of the grant activities that this funding can be used for technology and software, so computers, laptops, scanners, printers, things related to your computer, internet connections, your internet. For operational capacity building and support, that could be training, education, professional development for the organization's staff, strategic planning, board development for the organization, salary expenses, rent for your organization, specific office supplies, any expense related to building capacity or paying for the capacity that you paid for already, since we're backdating this to March. Any additional expenses that you may have incurred effective March 1 of 22 for the pandemic. Things like we know a lot of our homeownership centers needed to get video cameras, convert their documents to PDF, software related to having a document portal, things like that. Anything related to your remote counseling, and then for expansion to underserved and unserved populations. If you need the funding for document translation, you could also use this funding for salary differential for paying for bilingual languages. Some of the ineligible activities that would not be accepted in this grant would be construction costs, whether it's for external or for the organization. So, we had a question on that, so I just wanted to clarify that construction costs, external or internal, is not acceptable. Meals, food, travel is not included in this funding. Any advocacy, political engagement is not acceptable. It's not eligible expenses. Marketing specifically related to manufactured housing, community dispute resolutions is not an eligible expense. And then as you submit your application, the agency will review to determine eligible expenses, but it's pretty open as far as the expenses. And you will be required to submit at the end of the grant period a report, just a basic report, simple narrative of the outcomes and outputs from the use of this funding. Alexis.
Alicia or Alexis, sorry, can I interrupt? It's Kim.
I was going to say, I see a question.
We have some questions in the chat, which we'll get to, but I also want to acknowledge we have some people raising their hand, and I was not clear up front about, do we want to go through the whole solicitation and then come back for questions? What, Alicia and Alexis, what would you prefer?
I think might be best if we just go through the RFA, Alexis, if you agree, and then we can answer all the questions when we're done.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I just want everyone to know what kind of the process today. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you have questions, please put them in the chat for recording purposes. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to go over section 3, which covers the application requirements. First is the minimum application requirements. So you need to be an eligible organization. So refer back to the definitions. You will need to complete the attachments, attachment B and C. C is our application. And then please complete the additional RFA requirements, which include but are not limited to the application requirements in section 3. So this section that we're going to address. For your submissions, make sure you respond to round 1 evaluation criteria. Fill out the disclosure exemption affidavit, which is attachment B, and then the application certification sheet, which we will kind of walk through after this RFA. Your application page limits, they must contain a minimum of half a page of response, and they are limited to the maximum text of 1 double-sided page, standard size font. And any pages exceeding this limit will not be provided for evaluation to our evaluation committee. The disclosure exemption affidavit attachment B and the application information and certification sheet attachment C will not count as your page count. Those will be excluded. For the application format, send your application to the contracts inbox, as I stated before, and please reference the RFA number, which is 7365 in your subject line on the emails. All of our procurement specialists share the same contracts inbox, so it will be easily missed if it does not have that RFA number on it. So it's easier for me to identify. Make sure you sign the the pages by the authorized representative to sign. Go ahead and read through the application requirements just to make sure that you have all of those in your application. I do want to touch on the certification of insurance. You are not required to have the required insurance limits at the time of your application. If you have a certificate of insurance, you can submit it with your application. It's not required. But at the time of execution of an agreement, it will be required that you meet those insurance requirements that are in our attachment A, which is our sample grant agreement. The solicitation process is all listed in section 4, and everything, as Kim said, will be posted on the procurement opportunities page. So you can access all of the documents and everything on this page, and you can get there through this link. So all your questions, requests for clarification, as I said earlier, make sure they're delivered to the procurement specialist contracts inbox and reference the RFA number 7365. Identify the applicant's name and contact information, and then refer to the specific area of the RFA being questioned. It just helps us kind of identify how to answer your question and get that answer to you in a timely manner. This is all of the protest information. Make sure you read through all of this as well. And then the applications are due by the January 30th. They must be received by the SPC on or before closing. If there's any application modifications or withdrawals, they must be received prior to closing as well. If your application is received after the closing date or is late, it will not be accepted for evaluation. And so that is 5 p.m. on January 30th. This will go through all of the application rejection. If an application is rejected, this will kind of cover that for you, along with our evaluation process and how we will be reviewing all the applications for the solicitation. I do want to point out the evaluation criteria. It is a pass-fail for each point. So the first one is the eligible organization. Second is our attachment C application that must be attached. And then the funding request for the attachment C, make sure that you will fill that out, covering all these areas in the application. And we'll show that when we pull up the application for you. And then I think that is pretty much all we wanted to point out within the RFA. Right, Alicia? I just want to make sure that I don't miss something.
I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay. So then do we want to answer questions on this before I pull up the application, or just do the application and then go?
Let's do the application to make sure we have time. We go over everything that you wanted to go through.
Okay. Now, can you see the application?
Not
I know
yet.
Zoom is silly. Okay, because I think I
you
have to stop share.
I believe so.
Okay. Hopefully it doesn't take me as long this time. Nope. Okay, can you see the application now?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so here is attachment C. Fill out all of the top information with all of the applicant's information, contacts, and then number 1 is just asking you to tell us what type of eligible organization you are. The second one.
Alexis, can you increase the size? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't do that this time. Thank you, Sandra. Is that better? Okay. Number 2 is, does the applicant sponsor or manage home ownership programs? So yes or no. Does applicant serve low-income homeowners? So it's a very simple application. And then number 4 is going to go over the financial part of it, wanting to know the funding requests. You cannot exceed 300,000. And then these are just the 4 categories. And then just make sure you sign at the bottom. So very simple. Alicia, did you want to touch anything on that one as well?
I think the only other thing is just make sure they have 1 application per eligible organization is our limit.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're ready for questions.
Okay, I'll start reading them, and I guess I'll just start reading them and replying, whether if in Alexis, if you want to chime in for ones that are specific to procurement piece. The first question is can we use it for tech software license or related consulting? And yes, you can use it for technology. And I'm not sure on the related consulting, if it's technology consulting, if that is your question, then yes, that would be an eligible expense. If you want to, if that's not the right question, please clarify.
Thank you. That was my question. We're considering moving over to Salesforce and would need to hire consultants to customize some of the components of that, like for the document portal, for example. And that would be the steepest part of that expense for us. And so knowing that we could use this grant for it would make a big difference.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. That is definitely an eligible expense related to your client management system. The next question, it says, can this be used to pay space rent? And the answer would be yes, if providing that the space rent is for your homeownership center, for homeownership center activities. It says one of the allowable activities are organizational capacity, billing support, and accounting and payroll, and expenses for facilities are on this list. Is this just for new space or staff added within the grant period, or can it be for staff or space that existed before the March? So the funding can go back to March 1 of 2022. So if the salary expense happened during that time, March 1, we're not concerned if it's a new staff or an existing staff. So as long as the expense occurred and was paid effective March 1 through June 30th, then it would be an eligible expense. If I didn't answer it and I wasn't clear, please add to your question. The next is one page double-sided doesn't make sense in terms of electronic submission. 2 digital pages, right? Yes, that is correct. Basically, if we were to print the application, the evaluation criteria, if we print it out as 1 page front and back, then that's acceptable. So yes, 2 digital pages. Clarification related to IT purchases. Is it okay if the equipment is purchased prior to June 30th, even if received afterwards or not? I'm going to stop there and answer the question that goods and services must be received by June 30th. So you can, as long as you receive the equipment prior to June 30th, you can pay for it after that, but you must have received the equipment prior to June 30th. And this is not a program decision. This is a fiscal piece. This is instructions that we've received from our budget officer related to these general funds. So just to be clear, I'll keep reading the question. I understand, and they're saying here only because some of the equipment may be delayed in receiving, it's not outside of agency control. We totally understand. I know there's a lot of issues with electronics right now, and some may not be able to be received, but this is something that's outside of our control. This is a fiscal piece as far as the general funds and how they're used. So the clarification and the true expense for how this works is goods and services received on or before June 30th. I hope that, I'm sorry, probably doesn't help you in your question, but that's unfortunately, that's the general funds. 13.5. Okay, so it says, do pass-fail require narratives or simply yes, no? And as you can see on the application, it says yes, no for the first 3 questions. Or excuse me, the first one is asking the type of organization. The second 2 questions are a yes, no. So there's no narrative required for that. The only narrative is in the evaluation criteria that's in the section 4.1. Let's see. Can you repeat, is this only for expenses between March 1 and June 30th?
I recognize that was a typo, March 2022, not 2023.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So goods and services received between March 1, 2023, excuse me, no, you made me say that, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. So you can receive goods or salary expenses have been incurred during the month of June, for instance, of this year, 2023, and you can pay those expenses in July, but the goods and services must be received during that term of March 1, 2022 through June 30th. Any possibility of the June 30th deadline being extended? At this time, we don't anticipate that. Kim, do you have anything to add on that? I haven't heard anything that this would be extended.
That has been a question asked, and just for clarity, these funds are general fund dollars that we received in the short session, and any general fund dollars do need to be expended in the biennium. So that would require the June 30, 2023 deadline. We have heard that from partners on this particular solicitation and some other general fund solicitations. So at this point, I can say we've heard your ask and it's under consideration, but that would take a legislative, I guess, fix, because normally that doesn't happen with general funds. They usually do not roll to the next biennium. But I just want everyone to know that we have heard that request and it is being discussed internally. So thank you. And more to come. So when we have an answer, we obviously will be sharing it.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I lost my place here. Sorry. Got more questions in that bumped
Is
me
that
out.
my Alan? Where's the key working now?
Okay, so we have a question. It says you mentioned a half page or up to 2 pages of text. Where does this come from? This is from the evaluation criteria that is at 4.10.3. There's the evaluation criteria. So there's number 1 and number 2 and number 3 that you need to go through and pay attention to. And that's number 3 is where you're going to get that half page request. Oh, thank you, Alexis. So you can go the other way, 4.10.
Isn't it?
I think scroll down a little bit more. There you go. Oh, you went too far. I think it's further down is 4.10.
It's a 4.10. Oh, 4.10. Oh, like 4.10. Oh, 4.10 evaluation. Application.
There we go, evaluation process. It starts there. And then as you scroll down a little bit, then you get to the round 1 evaluation criteria. You'll see 1, 2, and 3. And number 3 is the, we're looking for the response. That's where we're talking about the half page. I hope that helps. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Oh,
Great. Okay, let's see. The next is, so the only thing that has to be written and submitted separately from the application page is question 3, funding sustainability. Yes, that is correct. That where Alexis is highlighting right now, that's the only question that we're asking. Can funds be requested in all 4 categories, or do we select one category? You can select from all 4 categories as long as the total amount of those 4 categories don't go over the $300,000. Can rent be charged if you are a home ownership center? So yes, your rent for a homeownership center, if you're because that's one of the eligible organizations, that is the eligible organization. So your rent can be charged to this program for either reimbursement or future rent, as long as it's within those date timelines.
Oh, Alicia, I think we need to clarify that because Jackie's question is, can rent only be charged if you're a homeownership center?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed
Yeah.
that only. Thank you.
Mhm.
So if you are an eligible organization, and basically you are an eligible organization, meaning you are a nonprofit, a housing authority, government, federally recognized Indian tribe, and you sponsor and manage homeownership programs, and you serve low-income homeowners, any expenses that you have related to your organization, yes, you can, rent would be an eligible expense. Thank you, Kim. I didn't catch the only. It says, would you mind laying out how a local government might apply these funds? So if a local government sponsors and manages homeownership programs and they serve low-income homeowners, then your government agency, which could be like a housing authority, or it could be, I know of some community, I think the community development organizations that are like of a county or a city that serve low-income homeowners, so they would be eligible, and those expenses related to providing those services would be eligible expenses. If that's not what you're looking for, please speak up. So to clarify, you can count your entire payroll costs from 3/1/22 to 6/30/23. Yes, so if you're an eligible organization and receive these funding, if you have salary expenses that were paid 3/1/22 through June 30th, 23, those funds, you could apply for reimbursement of those funds and pay back those funds back into whatever program or funding source that you use to pay that. So it's an accounting back office piece. So I just want to share this as an analogy, because I know in the beginning when we talked about these funds, we said you could bank the money, use it in a future time, but unfortunately we found out otherwise. So that's why these funds are backdated to March 1. So you could submit for your salaries from March 1 through the end of last year to be reimbursed, and you reimburse those funds back into whatever program that you or funding source that you may have used. Cool. And then those funds could be used for future uses. So an analogy would be, you took money out of your savings account, you bought a car, you got a loan for that car, you put that money back in your savings account. So now you have money back in your savings. So just kind of a simple little analogy just to explain that you could use this money to repay program expenses, salaries, your rent, things like that, and put it back into a program that you could use for future use. Because we know that's something some people are interested in, having future capacity support funding. I hope that helps. Can we include fringe costs with salary expenses? If you're talking about employee benefits and things like that, then yes, this is an eligible expense because it is related to staffing and salaries. Can you repeat? You said that is one application per jurisdiction, or our housing authority has a nonprofit arm. Can we do an application per organization? This is one of our housing authority and one for a nonprofit organization. So it's one application per eligible organization. So however that lays out for your organization, if you, in your situation here, it sounds like you could. I can't say for sure until I saw your application, but it sounds like you could potentially submit an application for each entity. What about legal or appraisal services expenses related to home construction and development? I think we might have to flag that one, Kim, unless you have a specific answer. I'm gonna have to think about that one.
Yeah, let us get back to, we'll make sure that, I mean, all of these questions we are going to document and post. And so let us just double check on that one. And then if we could just make sure everyone puts themselves on mute too, just so we're not having any background noise, we would appreciate that. Thank you.
So apologize, we'll get back to that, but you will see that on our website. We'll have all of these questions answered and posted on our website. It says fundraising expenses are not eligible for reimbursement. Does that mean salary for our development specialist who does fundraising, marketing, PR, and other tasks would not be eligible for reimbursement? I think that's another question that we'll probably have to, Kim's shaking her head, yes. We'll have to take a look at that and further that. I'm just making myself a note for the ones that I did not respond to. What about using the grant to update email software? That's technology, that's an eligible expense related to serving low-income homeowners. So yes. What about annual financial review or auditing services? I think we're gonna have to take that back. I want to say yes, but I think Kim, we probably want to make sure we understand that correctly before we give you a final answer.
And to me, when I read that, and if we're not clear, please, Robin, feel free to share. So to me, when I look at that question, that would be like your annual audit that's conducted on behalf of, most nonprofits have an annual audit or some sort of financial review. And
Yeah,
okay,
that's what I mean by that.
okay, perfect.
Thank
And I would agree with Alicia. To me, that's an operational expense. But we'll just make sure again that we answer all of them for sure too.
Okay, thank you very much.
Not a question, but thank you for looking into extending the deadline. Thank you for the simplicity of the RFA. Since we can capture expenses from March 22, can we bill salary that has already been billed to the HOPE, or is that considered double dipping? And that you're reimbursing expenses, and so those funds would be available for future use. So it's not considered double dipping. Your fiscal department would need to obviously do whatever they do in the back office to manage those funds. And it's not for us to say how that works. But yes, you can replenish your funds from other programs that you've funded and then manage the funds for future use as needed. If we are already in contract with OHCS, can the insurance certificate be used for this RFA? And yes, our procurement specialist will go through, and if you have, they look to see if we have other insurance agreements for any of our organizations that receive new awards before they will contact you and say, hey, we need your insurance certificate. Or if it needs to be renewed, they'll let you know that as well. So they do take a look at that so that we're not asking you 10 different times for 10 different funding sources to get your insurance certificate. That's a good question. We're trying to make it easy. Attachment C, technology, if it exceeds 2,500 for items requested in the application, must we present bids or invoices at time of application for pre-authorization? And no, you do not. You can submit everything for your application. We don't want you to spend extra time. We want you to get your application in as soon as possible. So you can submit your application, and if the amount is over, if one item is over $2,500, then we would ask you for additional information after we received your application. We don't want to delay you submitting your application by trying to find bids within a short period of time. Sorry, I lost my place because of other questions. Okay. Let's see. Can funds be used towards internet service expenses for employees that had to work remotely due to COVID related to office closures? Absolutely, yes. If your organization paid for staff's internet during the time period they were working from home and you paid for that, you can use these funds to reimburse where you paid those funds from. That would be the COVID related expenses, additional expenses that you may have had. We've had to bring on 2 temps during this time frame. I'm assuming this is an eligible expense. We have since hired both of these temps. Yay. and paid the temp agency the finder's fee, can that fee be charged against this grant? Any expenses related to your staffing and the salaries would be an eligible expense. So I would say yes. Kim, do you think otherwise? It's related to hiring. Yeah, okay. Kim's shaking her head. Yes, I agree. So yes, we can. For staff that are support, so example would be accounting and payroll, do we need to include documentation of time spent supporting homeownership activities? So at the time that you submit your application, we are not asking for any supporting documentation, but when you do submit an invoice for reimbursement, we do ask for, I'm not sure, everybody does different things. Some of our organizations have like a spreadsheet that shows the hours worked in different programs. So yes, we would ask for supporting documentation when we actually reimburse you, but not in the application process. If goods and services needs to be received by June 30th, is there a deadline for issuing payment? So we have been, I think we put an expiration date on the grant agreement, July 31st. I'm gonna have to get your exact dates in this question, but we did extend the expiration date of the grant period, so that you could accumulate all expenses and payments and things through June 30th, and then submit for the final reimbursement after the end of the what we would call a performance period. So but your payment to something has to be by June 30th, unless it was a service and it was received prior to June 30th. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't and you need clarification, let me know. So salaries for the month of June can be paid in July if that's how that works for your organization. So obviously.
And Alicia, in our sample grant agreement, we do have the termination date of August 15th.
August 15th. Okay, I was thinking it was August. I couldn't remember July or August. Yeah, so we gave you additional time so that if you have salaries that you're paying through June 30th, then you could pay them in August and then submit your invoice to us no later than, pay them in July, submit your invoice to us by August 15th, because we do have a timeline that we have to close out these general funds and report the amount of expenses that we've had in this program as far as the general fund piece. What if the nonprofit supports a homeownership program in addition to other types of programs? Can we still request expenses like office rent and payroll that might benefit multiple programs? I'm not sure I totally get that. I'm trying to quickly.
Yeah, hi, that was my question. I guess you know we're a nonprofit that has a homeownership program, but we also do other things like shelter, and I can think of some operational expenses that would overlap with both expenses. And are you looking for some sort of documentation that ties these directly to homeownership? You know, so for example, our office supports a home ownership program, but it also supports our other programs. So would it be like a percentage of that, or I guess that's my question.
Right. So yes, it would be a percentage, because that's how you would calculate your office space. You have a percentage for each of the different programs that you have in your agency. So when you submit your supporting documents, then you would have, you know, like 50% of rent was paid under their home ownership for home ownership, 50% paid by those other services. So yeah, we would be asking for specific documentation that's relating to your home ownership services.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Habitat for Humanity affiliates have salary costs for its staff, which includes programmatic positions, construction positions, fundraising positions, and restore positions. All of these positions technically support and servicing of low-income homeowners. Some affiliates could easily submit payroll-only costs for the period of March 22 through June and reach the 300,000 max grant request, or do we apply percentages to each position? If I'm understanding your question correctly, the salaries that are for the homeownership services, that's how it would, your supporting document would have to show that those staff members, whatever percentages they worked under the home ownership services, kind of like what I just explained in regarding to your rent costs. So if if you have 2 employees and they each worked 50% of their time doing homeownership services, then we would reimburse 50% of their salary. And so you should have documentation. I would think you have documentation that shows the employee working under those services. I'm sorry, I'm not as familiar with Habitat, but I know like for a lot of our homeownership centers, they calculate their time in different programs. So I'm thinking maybe you do, but if you don't, you probably have some type of accounting system that you track your services. I hope that helps, if that's helpful to you. Via legislative fix to extend the deadline, it seems possible with the current legislative composition, the current new governor. Are there specific folks we should or could contact to weigh in on this? Kim, I'm going to give you that one because I don't know who advocates for us to get this extended, if we can get out external advocates or if it's internal.
So at this point, I would ask that you don't reach out because it is an internal conversation and it's something that OHCS has to initiate. And so I would ask that at this point, please don't reach out because we're having those conversations internally right now to see what that actually looks like. But I appreciate, and if we need help, we'll ask for help. So I appreciate the question and the offer to help advocate for that as well.
Okay, clarification in particular to the relationship with HOPE. If you put funds back into HOPE, the expending deadlines of HOPE still apply, correct? For any of our homeownership centers that are on this call that have HOPE, the homeownership center funding, there's no deadline for expending your funds in HOPE. Your contract was extended, was a 5.5-year term. So each year you don't have to expend all your funds. If you don't use it all, it stays within your grant agreement for the next year to use. So you don't have to expend it all. Oh, yay, thanks. Finder's fees are crazy. I'm sure they are. Let's see, can we move funds from one category to another after approved for the grant? For example, we're estimating 20,000 in technology, but only use 15. Can the additional 5,000 be used for staffing or something else, or are we locked into amounts for categories? So for the application, I get that your estimates may not work correctly or might not work exactly how you planned. So yes, we would allow that. It may be an amendment of maybe electronic amendment that we would have to do. So we could make changes, but we would have to have an advanced communication from you saying, hey, we didn't spend this. We want to move it to this category. That's perfectly acceptable, but we do have to approve that for you. And we'd like to do that in advance of actually you expending the funds and submitting a reimbursement. For IT purchase that are, let's say, for fiscal department, but they are fiscal department to support the whole agency, including the homeownership center, is it okay to purchase and pay with the grant all the equipment, or does it need to be only a prorated portion? And that would be the same as like the rent and salaries based on a portion of how they support the homeownership center. I know most of you have like cost allocations based on each of the support programs that they support. So it would be a prorated support portion. Is there a definition for homeownership services? Homeownership services. I don't know that we have a definition specifically to homeownership services. We have a definition for homeownership centers. Homeownership services include counseling clients for pre-purchase, foreclosure, post-purchase, financial literacy counseling. So that is our definition. We determine that if you're providing services for post-purchase financial counseling, and then for foreclosure or tenant-related type things, those kind of counseling. But I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said renters because this does focus on homeowners. So it would be foreclosure counseling or post-purchase counseling would be the focus, and then financial literacy for those homeowners as well. So that would be our definition for homeownership services. Kim, is there anything I missed? Okay, thank you. Just want to make
No.
sure. What about home repairs? I'm not sure, Talia, what you mean by that. Home repairs. Oh, so if somebody has a program for doing repairs on home for homeowners, oh, sorry, I get it now. It took me a second. So yeah, so if you are providing repairs for homeowners, if you have a program, some of you, I know some of our organizations have a rehab program for like safety and health issues, and they repair homeowners' homes for those type of things. Yes, that could be a homeownership service. So activities to create housing are not included. So that would be true. So if your organization only serves home buyers, then that's not the same as a homeowner as was listed in the eligible organization. So it's for homeowners. Someone that owns their own home, be it, it could be a manufactured home, it could be a stick-built home. So either one of those apply. Kim?
Oh, did we answer Debbie's question? Can homeownership services include rental assistance? Did I miss one?
I
She
didn't
answered that after I wrote it.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
I did. Sorry, I didn't see that question. I guess I missed it. Sorry.
Did we define manufactured? I just heard you say manufactured homes.
So an owner, a manufactured home. So what's the definition? I don't know what the definition.
The reason I'm asking, right? Mobile home park, home owned. So the habitat is owned. The mobile's owned by someone. They're paying rent. Would that fall under an eligible homeowner?
And they are a homeowner,
Okay.
even
Thank
if
you.
they're renting in a park, they still own a home. So for instance, if you're providing services to somebody, because somebody in that situation could also need foreclosure counseling because they're, yeah, so. Can you put your question in the chat for us, please? So I don't have to write the whole thing.
And I just want to acknowledge that we're at 10:58. So we, boy, that hour went by very fast. I want to appreciate all of the questions that we have answered and you have placed in the chat. We will leave the chat open for a little bit longer because I want to make sure if you've got questions that you didn't ask or listening to the questions and answers that were coming in during this, during our conversation today, I want to make sure that you can have a little bit more time to ask, put some questions in the chat versus sending an email into the SPC, special point of contact. It's all that's coming to my brain at the moment, so I apologize for that. So we'll leave it open, but just before anyone jumps, you need to leave for another meeting, just some really quick reminders, right? I think you've heard it multiple times, but we can never say it enough. The closing date for this solicitation is January 30th at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And again, if you have questions, when you have a question in the comment line or the subject line, please put 7365 question. That way, as Alexis alluded to, there's multiple solicitations that are happening and lots of questions coming into this joint email box. So if you can help us help you by putting the solicitation number of 7365, you're going to have that ingrained. It would really, really help us to make sure we catch all the questions and we can get a timely response back to you and get those questions posted to the website. And again, I see a bunch more kind of questions coming in that we won't be able to actually answer this morning, but we will add those to the Q&A that we post to the website. So please, if you asked us a question that we didn't get to, we will put it will be there. So know that your questions will be answered. And any other questions that come in to the question deadline date, which Alicia or Alexis, if you have that, is January 19th at noon. is the last time to submit your questions to us. And thank you for the comments in the chat about the simplicity of the form and the application. That was our goal, was to make this as simple as we can. So we appreciate those comments as well. Alicia or Alexis, do you have any closing comments that you'd like to make before we say goodbye and thank you for everyone joining us today?
No, just thank you, and hope I was helpful.
Great. And again, we'll leave the Zoom link open just for a little bit. We'll stop the recording as everyone leaves, but have time to make sure that you have time to put some more questions in there. And with that, we're at 11:01. So thank you very much, everyone. And we look forward to answering your questions and getting everything posted. And everything will be easy and locatable on our procurement website. Thank you.
Thank you.